Okay, so in just a few seconds, I should be able to see that it's going live because it's still working. It's still working, Jaz. We are rocking and rolling
on
today.
my side, it says live on Facebook.
So we are rocking and rolling. It was just not meant to be on Monday. So Monday Whispers chat on Wednesday. I think that works. What do you think?
Not?
So welcome everybody to Monday Whispers chat on a Wednesday. And so my name is Rollie Allaire and I am a holistic life and wellness coach. And so every Monday, typically, we feature amazing and inspiring women. And this week we've changed it to Wednesday because Jaz and I had a full conversation with each other for an hour on Monday, and it didn't record, nor did it go live on Facebook. So here we are. So we decided that we were not going to let technology just take control of our lives, and we were going to just do it today. So here is kind of an impromptu session, and I'm just trying to see if I can actually see people's comments. So I'm just trying to refresh my page on the other computer. And so I'm going to start off with, before I actually go and find me on Facebook, is I'm going to read introduce Jaz. So I'm going to read her intro. So Jaz is actually going to talk about From Perfectionism to Divine, Finding Your Path to Wholeness. So Jaz Mystic Priestess is a spiritual coach and teacher, certified crystal healer, Reiki Master, tarot reader, and Soul Realignment practitioner. In short, she has many tools in her spiritual tool belt to help you feel more relaxed, confident, and at home in your body. She knows how important it is to manage one's stress and reconnect to the deeper well of source energy. Her own story of anxiety and panic attacks have taught her these things. So not able to take it any longer, she quit the stability of her job with the federal government to start her own spirit-led business, and she has not regretted it one bit. She now works with women who are ready to shift to a higher vibe, to make change in their life, and to find that sense of fun, joy, freedom, and abundance. So many things that we forget when life happens. So she can guide and mentor you step by step in your own healing and transformational journey. So Jaz lives by the St. Lawrence River and takes walks through the parks with her family and her faithful dog, Maya. I did it again. She loves to read historical novels, especially when there's a strong female lead. She's an avid traveler. So welcome, Jaz. So welcome to Monday Whispers chat. So again,
thanks for having me again.
Take two. Well, I had the pleasure of being able to enjoy your company last time. I just apparently hogged all of that time just for me. That was intentional, right?
Who knows? Goddess does what goddess wants.
So here we are today. So based on your intro, is there anything else that you want to be able to share that we haven't touched on?
Well, there was quite a bit there in my intro. I think it's quite a mouthful. Yeah, so if people have any questions, like I'm a Gemini sun and I'm interested in so many different things. It's really hard for me to get, pinpoint to the one thing. I think on my computer drive, I must have like 6 bios going on, and I never know which one to share because they all seem good. So the best way to get to know me is really to have conversations with me. So.
Awesome. So thank you very much for being able to take this time. So for those of you who don't normally catch this, because it's not usually during the day, I just wanted to let you know that we're generally here for about an hour, give or take, kind of depends on how the conversations go. We would love for you guys to be able to give us some feedback, some conversations, let us know if there's any questions as we go along. Definitely getting involved in the conversation is something that we want to be able to, that we definitely want to be able to do. I'm going to share this into my group and onto both my page and onto Jaz's page so that people know that we're actually on live right now. So you guys you're able to join us. So, and we're just having a conversation. And so like what we talked about on Monday may look completely and totally different than how it looks today. So who knows, because we just kind of let the conversation flow. So, now one of the questions, and I know that this has nothing to do with the topic, but how are things with flooding in your area? Just because there's so many, because you're on the river. So are you being affected by all these
No.
these floods? Oh, thank
No,
goodness.
not the St. Lawrence River, and I see it right outside my window here. It's gorgeous today. It's a deep aqua blue, not aqua, but like a deep indigo blue almost. The water level is a little bit lower than it was last week.
Okay.
But it's flowing very well. Where they have more issues is in the Ottawa-Gatineau area, which is about 100 kilometers north of me. So they've been bagging for about a week or so.
Good. That's really helpful, because I know that Mattawa, which is I think it's about 3 hours, like you have to go north and then west. I'm horrible with directions, but anyway, they are flooded right now, and they are on alert. So so that is definitely a problem for some different areas. So I wasn't sure if that would actually affect you or not. So definitely
down here, close to here, Ottawa. I think they might have a boil water advisory coming up soon.
Okay,
but here it's good.
Yay! That's always awesome. So so tell me a little bit more about why you picked this topic. So from perfectionist to divine, finding your path to wholeness. Like, so where does that come from?
Well, that comes from my journey, because I've always been a perfectionist. The first story that I heard from my mom about me being a perfectionist was from me being in kindergarten. First week of class, so parents, I think, were present, and we had to draw a picture of us, of ourselves and our family. And maybe we had a half hour, I don't know, because I was 5 years old. But I took the whole time that was given to me to find the right shade for my hair. And I'm strawberry blonde, a little bit darker now, but I'm strawberry blonde. So it's not the orange pencil, it's not the yellow pencil, it's not the brown pencil. So I was, putting all the colors together to get the right shade of hair. And so at the end of the class, I had only like a couple strands of hair that was drawn on my picture, where everybody had a full picture. So, it started young, the perfectionist thing. And what the perfectionist did in my life, it's just a whole lot of stress and anxiety through grade school, high school, and I'm in my mid-40s now. So I've always dealt with a lot of stress and anxiety because of the perfectionism that showed up in so many different areas of my life. And what I've realized in my spiritual path, especially since I quit the federal government, is that we don't have to be perfect. To be divine is not perfect. The goddess is not perfect. She has so many different experiences and so many emotions and so many things that she goes through. There's grief, there's betrayal, there's anger. So all of these emotions are a part of our human existence. We can't just be flat and perfect and always have the right thing to say, always do the right thing. That creates so much guilt. Yeah. And for me, all this guilt and this grief and everything, it caused me a lot of, I know that it's the root cause of my endometriosis that I suffered with since I was 10 years old when the pain started.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my journey. It's like, we don't have to be perfectionists to be a good person. And we certainly don't have to be perfectionists to be divine. And my path was discovering the stories of the goddess.
Nice. And I can definitely relate to what you're saying about having had anxiety from the time that you were really young, because again, my mom would say the same thing. So I think I was around 6 when my mom had taken me to see a specialist, who had said that I worry too much, that like all of the things that were actually going on for me had to do with worry and that anxiety of having to do everything perfect. Like I would do my homework, I would redo my homework, redo my homework, redo my homework. And if I started writing out my homework homework and made one little mistake, then I would be scrapping the whole thing and starting from scratch, because it wasn't even just scratch it off and do that kind of thing. And if you take a look at my life now, people are like, really, you're a perfectionist? Like, things are pretty disastrous around me. And so how does that kind of fit? So like, I'm a perfectionist that is in chaos. What does that look like?
Well, perfectionism shows up in so many different ways, right? It's not just the orderly desk, because if you're like me and you have piles of stuff on your desk, you know what's in which pile and don't touch the pile. Right? Because there's an order inside. But it shows up, it's in the way, it's in our perception of life. So it's not always reflected on the outside, but it's a stress that we carry on the inside.
Yeah. And it does. And it is that stress. And so I have never met anybody who has anxiety. And this is something that we actually talked about on Monday, is that in all the years of my practice, is that I have never, ever met anybody that struggles with anxiety that does not have perfectionism, some sort of showing up some way, whether it's specifically OCD, whether it is having specific things that are in order, like whatever, like I've never had anybody who struggles with anxiety that does not have some sort of perfectionism trait in some way.
Yeah. And sometimes people say they're not perfectionists because their house is a mess, or
yeah.
Whatever, but that's one, like a pop culture definition of perfectionism, is that everything is kind of feng shui.
Yeah.
But the other part of perfectionism is that we have this plan in our mind. This was mine when I was in my early 20s. No, even before, when I was a teenager, so that by the year 2000, I was going to be married. I was going to have a house. I was going to have 3 kids. And you have all this life plan, and you have all the shoulds, the way things should be. Yeah. Because that's like, I grew up on fairy tales, like so many people, Disney fairy tales, and that's like the perfect thing, right? Yeah. You need the perfect dress, the perfect wedding dress, a perfect day. So it shows up in those life plans, and your business is supposed to be a certain way. Your work is supposed to be a certain way. Your paycheck, the way your husband interacts with you is supposed to be, especially for spiritual people. Mm-hmm. When they start shifting and they say, well, my husband isn't supporting me and they're supposed to do this and that, like that's a form of perfectionism. You're waiting. There's kind of this, this expectation that everything's going to be perfect all the time. You're going to be nurtured. You're going to be supported. People are always going to say yes. And we know that that's not the truth, mm-hmm. but there's still that expectation. And we're kind of living that duality in our mind between what we know and the expectations in real life. And there's just too much of a gap between the two. And that's where really the anxiety settles in, is in that gap.
Yeah. And again, those things make perfect sense, right? So, so again, if you guys are catching, if you guys are jumping on, and if you guys have any questions, weigh in on the discussion. We definitely want to be able to have you guys participate in this. And so Ray has just jumped on, and I just want to kind of point out to the fact that, yes, we're talking about this divine goddess, but it is still like we have male, female within our entire being. And so if you are male and you are jumping on, please don't jump off as part of this discussion, because we still need to have, and there are a lot of males that I know as well that have that struggle with having perfectionism as well.
And I think in a way it's getting worse for men than it's been for many years, because we have these expectations about men, about them being perfect. They have to show to us, they have to be tough, but they have to be gentle and loving and caring and showing their emotions. And I think it's getting really hard for men to figure out who they're supposed to be.
Yeah. And how they're supposed to fit into the world, right? So women were kind of shifted to like having to do all of these things. And then they started to so they had to look after the home. They had to look after the children, and making sure that when their husbands came home. And one of the other things that we talked about, or that we talked about on Monday, is the whole like rule of thumb, right? So like all of this, patriarchy was part of like the women's roles and the things that were actually going on. And I know that one of the things that even with my boys that was happening is that the boys would be told by other people, not me, because that was one of the things that I was really big on, is that I would hear often people say, oh, you're a boy, suck it up. No, don't suck it up. You want to cry, then cry. You feel hurt, then feel that hurt. It's okay for you to be able to have those emotions. And because that is one of the things that would actually happen. But again, it's like, if you're going to cry, and then I know that one of the expressions when we were kids is, if you're going to cry, then we're going to give you something to cry about. Right. So it's like, shut that down. Like, no more crying. You're not allowed to be crying. And so even as girls, we were still given like you're allowed to cry for a short period of time, but then it's like, oh, no, not after that. And the boys growing up were not allowed to cry at all. Like, they just needed to be tough. Like, you fell down, get back up again and like start running. It's like, if I fall down, I want to cry for a minute because it hurts. Right?
Emotions were not allowed in my family growing up.
Yeah.
My parents are very intellectual, and I was raised by books. Because, when you have like the big conversation, my mom just gave me a book and say, if you have questions, let me know. Like, how am I supposed to know what questions to ask on that topic? Right? 10, 11 years old. It's books all the time. No, emotions were not allowed. I had a sister who was very emotionally explosive, to the point that she would get naked, strip the bed and everything, like the whole big emotional explosion. I'm the oldest, so I always should be more reasonable. I should know better. I should, not show anything, and just very intellectual and very rational in the way that I present things. So I was only in my mid-20s, I think, that I started reclaiming emotions, and it's still not easy.
No, it isn't. And I'm on the opposite spectrum, right? So like, I was always extremely emotional, and I'm still very extremely emotional. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and even when I don't want to be wearing my heart on my sleeve, you definitely know what it is that I'm feeling just by looking at me or talking to me. And so that is something. And I actually just jumped on a live just before today, just because I was here, and I'm like, no, you know what? I've kind of like taken a step back, and that's kind of what it is that I took that step back this last week because I just needed to kind of regroup and refigure out what it is that I needed to do and how I wanted to be able to move forward. And part of that is feeling guilty, and there's that perfectionism part, right? So it's like that feeling guilty of like, you know what? I haven't showed up for my community. I haven't showed up live. I haven't gone into my group. I haven't really been responding to things. I've really just kind of taken a step back, and that guilt comes up, right? So it's like, oh, okay, but as a business person, I'm supposed to do all of these things. And I couldn't. I needed to take a step back. There was some challenges with my website, and so that really took its toll on me, and I really needed to just kind of regroup and refresh and start fresh and kind of go from there. But that perfectionism comes up in all these different ways, right? So even though I still took a step back, that perfectionistic brain kept coming back in going, oh, you really should. You should. I've written a few articles that were published in magazines about the shoulds, and that the truth is there are no shoulds. Yeah. Because the shoulds, when we say, oh, I should do this, I should do that, that creates a lot of inner anxiety, a lot of inner stress. A lot of false measurement of who we are and who we should be. And it's very disempowering because it takes away our power of choice. Yeah. And there's one thing that we have through all of humanity and creation is that free will is a gift. And every time that there's a should, it's like we give away that power of free will. So what I challenge people to do every time that, oh, I should do this, or things should be this way, is what I challenge my students, my clients to do is to say, okay, but what do you choose? Like, I know this can be an option. And for right now, in this breath, in this moment, I choose this. And that is a whole lot more empowering, even if, like at times,
I say, I know that chips aren't good for me, but just for now, I'm going to choose to eat a bowl of chips.
Yeah.
My choice, and then I can have the consequences, but I try not to guilt trip myself into, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And I choose. And I love that statement. And I know that my girlfriend, Tracy, does that all the time, right? So that's one of the things is, and not necessarily about choices specifically, about what it is. She actually does that a lot in terms of being able to connect with her emotions. Is today I choose not to allow somebody else to take my power. I choose not to, or I choose to allow myself to be in this moment, in this time. I choose. And so I really like that statement. And especially when she's having one of those hard sells, like when you're trying to convince yourself, is being able to have those, I choose to do this, and I choose to have those things. And it's like, so that statement of, are you trying to convince yourself or someone else? And most of the time, those times that you're trying to convince yourself. You're trying to convince yourself to being okay with that. So Wes says, rather than I should, it should be I will, or I choose, like what was said. So I like that, right? So rather than saying I should, it should be, right? So so a little bit of play on words.
It's everywhere, this should. We're so good at shoulding ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's so unhealthy.
And it's not. And it is something that over the years that I've done with my clients as well. And I do it, and I fall into that trap, even though consciously I know what it is that I need to be doing for myself and being able to make those choices for myself. But then society just kind of takes over and has you putting all of these demands and stuff on you, and makes it difficult sometimes. So like I said, the last week and a bit, I know that there have been people that have called me, that have left me messages, that have sent emails, and I choose to just focus on me right this second. So whatever it is that is huge and urgent for you in your, whatever it is that's going on, and these are not clients, like this is, so it's not that I've not like kind of eliminated what it is that I need to be doing for my clients, but it's but these are other people that have demands of me that I need to be doing, and I need to kind of refocus and make a decision or make a plan as to how I want to be able to move forward. But constantly calling me or sending me messages isn't going to help me make that decision any faster, because I really need to be able to just kind of take that step back, figure out where I need to be, where it is that I'm going, and how I want to be able to proceed with making my choice. And so harassing me and hounding me, normally my explosive emotional behavior would because I would just be like lashing out, saying like, forget it, like you're not the boss of me, kind of thing. But just kind of giving myself that time to be able to think about it. And normally I would have that guilt, right? And it's like, no. So it's there, it will be there tomorrow, and I'm not dealing with it this week. So if you're really that urgent and you're going to continue to send me messages, then continue to send me the messages. I'm not dealing with it this week. And I choose to not deal with it this week. I choose to not feel guilty about it either.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those are choices. They are hard choices to make. It takes a lot of practice. You will not have it right or perfect the first time around, right? Because what you just spoke about are good karmic boundaries, energetic boundaries, and physical boundaries as well.
Yep.
Right. And that's one of the big things that I work on with my clients as well. But so the first time that you stand up for yourself and that you establish those boundaries, like, oh, the phone is ringing, I should be answering it. I stop answering the phone at home because most of the time, 99% of the time, it's a telemarketer. So I don't even get up to answer the phone anymore. If it's important, the person's going to leave a message, right?
Yeah.
It's not my business, because I work from home. So it's not my business phone. If I wasn't home, I wouldn't be there to take the message anyway. But there used to be that guilt, like there's that stimulus, there's the phone ringing, or there's the email, there's a pinging, the social media stuff gets on my nerves so much. So I should answer right away.
Yeah.
Business owners have that too. It's like, I have a client texting me at midnight and I should answer right away. No. So it's all about establishing those boundaries. And the first time, you're going to feel really guilty for not doing it, because social conditioning, because you want to be the good girl. So there's all of that going on too. But after a while, it's just like going to the gym. You're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So if this is something that people are working on, this is where a coach really comes in handy.
Yeah.
To support you and nurture you along the way, because it's so darn tough to do it on our own.
And it is like, and it's really, and even for those of us who know what it is that we need to be doing, sometimes we still need to be able to have that little bit. So Jaz and I actually work with the same business coach. And so it's really helpful, because some days, and even the support within the group as well, right? So some days it's like, I know this, but being able to kind of put it out there allows others to be able to kind of help to reinforce that part of things. And, or sometimes we just can't see the forest for the trees, right? So sometimes that happens.
Your own mess.
Like, it's not always helpful, right? So
and that speaks to something else that I work on with my clients, and how the way of the goddess came about. It's because a lot of people are like me, and we live in our heads a whole lot, and we know what is the right thing, or what we should do, or what is, the highest good. How many people know what to do to quit smoking? They know what to do to lose weight. You know what to do to increase your knowledge. We know these things. We know we shouldn't be on social media for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Like, there's things that we know. But then the other part is the embodiment of that truth, to move from the head to not only the heart, but to the embodiment. And so living and being in that truth instead of just thinking about it.
Yeah.
That in itself is a journey. And that's where the stories of the goddess can really help us make that change, because they change, working with the stories of the goddess is they change our wiring in our brain. They help us see a new perspective. Typically, when we're stuck in our perfectionism, when we're stuck in those stories, we narrow our perspective, because we're stuck. We're in there. This is the way things should be, and there's only this way, and I'm working with this, and I'm working so much, and then things get so busy, and we're stuck there. But then when you stop and listen to the story and work with a coach, it opens up the prefrontal cortex, and then you're able to perceive something different. And it opens up more choices for you that you can choose differently, something that's healthier and more embodied. And then you can take a step, and the second step, and the third step.
Yep. And that's the same thing about being able to take this step back, right? So in this past week, is that just gives you that opportunity to be able to see how things are going to be different. And so that perfectionism part of me that I talked about is that what would have happened say 6 months ago, when we actually went to go ahead and do the Zoom the Monday Whispers chat on Monday, and all of these things happened. Like I said, Jaz and I had a full conversation, not even realizing it wasn't recording. We knew that it didn't go live onto Zoom, because Zoom and Facebook weren't friends on Monday. And so, but it was, and it was initially recording, and it's still recording, even though we're on live. So like, we got both today, but it was still, hey Bev, but it was still that part of like not knowing how to, like what would have happened in the past is I would have just said, okay, scrap it. We're done. We're done. I'm not doing this. Sorry. Thanks so much for joining me, Jaz, but like, it didn't work. Obviously it wasn't meant to be. And before we even, when we realized it was like not happening, and both of us were puzzled, because it was like, but it was recording. We know that it was recording. We both saw the record button.
We were in the moment.
And so, but then at that point, it was like, okay, so what do you have available this week? Like, what do you have? And can we actually just go ahead and redo this week? And so we threw around a couple of dates and came up with this one. And it was like, so we're doing Monday Whispers chat on Wednesday. Yep. So be it. It's about being able to go with that flow and being able to roll with those punches. Whereas in the past, I would not have been able to roll with those punches. I would have just been so irate and so angry. I probably would have sent Zoom and Facebook both nasty emails saying like how poor of this service this was, that we were having so much difficulty with all these things. Whereas now it's kind of like, no, we're good. We're good. So we just wait. We wait it out. We see where it goes. And today we actually have people that are actually on live with us. So we have Raymond and we have Wes and we have Bev. Whereas on Monday we couldn't connect to Facebook. So we had nobody. It was just the two of us having a conversation, right? So
great conversation still. But yeah. And that's kind of the difference too that happens when we move out of the perfectionist self, is that we start seeing more options. So perfectionism and stress, it blocks our intuition in so many ways. It blocks our manifestation processes. And then we're just not open to other ways of doing things. One of the ways that I share this as a bit of a story, if anybody is like a James Bond, everybody's seen like a James Bond movie, right? So you got the hero, and what happens when he gets in a certain situation, right? He's not like, oh no, my gun isn't firing anymore. Or, oh, I'm falling out of a cliff. Or, oh no, the plane is going down. Okay, that's it, I'm dead. Like James Bond never says that. Say, okay, F this, I'm just dead. Too bad, right? There's something. He's always has those tools. There's a special belt. There's a special watch. There's a special pen. There's always something, and he's always looking for the opportunity. So I know that this is Hollywood, but this is what we can do with our life as well. So we can shut down, like you said you would have done 6 months ago, and say, well, that's it. I'm like giving up. This shit isn't working. Or we can say, okay, then what are the opportunity? But we can never see what that next opportunity, what that next schedule, what the solution is, if we're just stuck into that stress of, well, this isn't perfect and it isn't working. Like that's a total shutdown.
Yeah.
And not just of the opportunity, but like if you can feel that in your body for a moment when you're in that situation, there's probably a knot in the stomach. There's probably pressure around the heart. There's probably pressure around the head. So some people might feel nauseated or a headache because it's just like everything is shutting in. Whereas when you take that deep breath and you get out of the perfectionism and say, okay, well, then find what else is available. Then there's an opening.
Yeah.
So that's what happens on the energy field.
And that makes all the difference in the world, right? So like when, so oftentimes people actually take a look at, it's like, well, no, I'm like this and I'm always going to be like this.
Yes.
Well, you can be, but that's a choice.
It's a choice.
Right. So it's always about that choice. So I had a client who, so like I have anxiety and I don't know that anxiety is ever going to disappear entirely. That is definitely inbred into who I am. But it doesn't mean that it has to rule my life. So that anxiety does not need to rule my life. I get to make the choice as to how is this going to affect me and what choices. And some days I'm just going to sit in it and I'm going to be okay with just sitting in it. And just because that's where I'm at right today at this particular moment, but I don't need to be there. And so I know a lot of people will say to me, you know, I would have never known that you have anxiety. Because they see me on live, and even before I started doing online work, is that when I would actually work with my clients one-to-one, or I would do groups and things like that, people will be like, really, you have anxiety? Yeah, I have anxiety, and I've had anxiety for as long as I can remember. And it is something that has affected my life all the time. And so I have learned to be able to manage my anxiety. I have used the tools that I actually teach clients. I have used the tools that I participate in other programs and other different things. And so like today, for example, I'm driving to North Bay, which is a 2-hour drive, to be able to do a mindfulness practice. Like, so I teach mindfulness, but I am going to be a student. I am going to just be and just participate in the group. And so it was a 6-week program, and I drive 4 hours, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, so that I can actually just kind of be part of this group where I don't have to be the one who's teaching. I get to just be and using Jaz's words, being able to embody being mindful.
Yep.
Right. So I haven't learned anything new other than like a few meditation kind of things, but like there's tons of meditations out there, but I haven't learned anything new in the 6 weeks. There isn't anything, any in terms of tools that they have provided me in these 6 weeks that I didn't already have. They were already in my toolbox, but I just kind of brought it back up and dusted off some of those tools to be able to to deal with it. So when Jaz was talking about like, these are some of the things that I do with my clients, that is still something, and people will say, oh yeah, but I've already learned all these things. I already work out through all these things. I don't need to have somebody like Jaz work with me. Doesn't mean that she's not going to be able to help you brush off some of these tools that have been kind of stagnant and stale and not doing the things that that you need yourself to be able to do, or you need to be able to make those choices. So what are your thoughts on that, Jaz?
Quite a few things that came up as we're talking. First of all, yes, it's just having a coach is something that we all need. Especially as healers, we need a healer. As teachers, we need another teacher. It just gets us out of that one mode of operating and into another mode of operating, so we don't get stuck. And also the other thing that came up as you were talking is the ability to receive. And a lot of the time when we're on the perfectionist path, receiving is so darn difficult. Yeah. And it's kind of tied to an inner perception that I'm never good enough. I never do enough. I never, like business wise, I never do enough marketing. I never do enough lives. My finances are a mess, or there's always something that says I'm not good enough. So then you want to push and do. And then taking that step back and receiving gets to be so difficult. So sometimes when you have a coach, it's that 1 hour or 2 hours where you're just receiving. And that just, it's like the reset button, just everything goes down. Yeah. And then when you start back up again, you feel more refreshed, more aligned, and able to give from a place of, your cup is full, as opposed to being empty all the time and then going into burnout.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense, right? So I have a couple of people that we exchange services. So even though we may be doing very similar things, we exchange services. We work through different situations where so we don't pay each other. We just take that time for each other. And so I give, you give, and then we just are allowed to be able to just kind of be in those moments. And so say, for example, Jaz and I were working together, then I would meet up with Jaz. She would help me with whatever issue that I have coming up. And this is my hour, my time, my whatever. And then the following week or the next day or whatever it is, then it's all focused on Jaz being the person who's actually getting. And so it's a great exchange of give and take that allows us to be able to have that that opportunity where we can actually rebuild, right? So we build on the things that we're doing. And so it is so important that we actually have somebody for us that is there and helps to support us and to be there. So
yeah, and that's also part of the goddess path, because the goddess path is a community. Whereas the capitalist and the archaic principles that we're working for is like each man for his own, each woman for his own.
Yep.
And that's not the goddess way. It takes a village. It takes a community. No goddess is on her own pretty much ever. There are times of trials and tribulation where the goddess has to be on her own just to make her own mind about things and to really know what lesson that she learned. But most of the time, we're not meant to be alone. So we have to be together. I know that my ideal business structure would be a business where a lot of practitioners and healers would come together and offer different services. And we would work together out of our strength instead of one person doing every single thing on her own, because it's a lot.
And it is a lot. And so one of the things that I have really enjoyed is having had formed my team of people that are actually helping me, and we use their expertise. So they help with the different things that I'm doing or that they're doing, and we each have our own strengths that we're actually able to build on and help us help more people, right? So Monday Whispers Chat is not about me specifically hosting, like, yes, I am the one, I'm consistent, I'm the one that's coming on and hosting it, but it's about being able to host these conversations that allow you to be able to bring in your expertise, you to be able to share your knowledge, you to be able to give your voice as to on specific issues and what it is that's going on. And so I often have different people that'll message me and say, well, I don't know. I don't really know if I actually have the right things to be able to say, or, and I've had different people that have come on that are not business women, that are not entrepreneurs, that don't have any expertise from a professional stand, but have been able to share their own personal journeys. I've had people that have actually shared their mental health journeys. I've had people that have shared their opinion as to why they should be breastfeeding, and for such a length of time, or that we've had someone else that actually shared why should she be staying at home and being a mom, as opposed to, like, because society says we should be actually out working and doing all these other things. And so Monday Whispers Chat is most of the time are entrepreneurs that actually come up, and that's because they have a little bit more confidence than the people who don't. But it's not meant for that. It's about empowering women. It's about empowering each other. And so, and today I'm like really honored that we actually have two men that are actually on and listening and sharing with the things that are actually going on. And so I'm very touched that both of these men are actually still having these conversations. And so it's just really important that we support each other and that we empower each other and that we show some strength. So in a group, there was a male that actually sent me a message and said, well, he's like, I'd really love to be able to be on your show, but like it's about, but like, I guess I can't really because I'm a male, right? And it's like, no, not saying that at all, right? So typically, yeah, I'm having chats and conversations with women, and it's about empowering women. But if you have something that actually you are able to share that actually has some value in being able to empower women. Women have been disempowered over the years for so many years. And so now we're seeing women rising, right? So we're seeing women coming out and being more confident and being able to do more things. And so it's like, so in the Aboriginal communities, women were the ones that were actually, were the ones who actually helped to make the decisions in their communities. The grandmothers are the ones that would actually meet and make those decisions, and they were the ones that would actually get the wise messages and what it is that was going on. But we've lost and disconnected from some of that because of patriarchy, and so it is. It's really important for us to be able to remember and support each other. So I will never say to a man, no, you can't come and participate. Now, obviously, there's some ceremonial things that, like when we're doing our women's retreat, obviously no men allowed. Sorry, like that's just not going to happen. That is definitely us connecting, because we're gone for an entire weekend and completely isolated. And this is definitely about women connecting with women entirely. But like for everything else, like even though I advertise like women, and I know that you're the same thing, right? So we advertise that we work with women, and that's primarily because that's who we attract. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that we kind of say, no, I'm not going to work with you because you're a male. But typically most males don't come into this circle. Yep. So what is your experience, Jaz?
A lot of different experiences, and I could start like 5 different conversations with that. Like just briefly, like the bullet points. See, my Gemini mind and Mercury and Gemini is just at work. But our process of reclaiming, which is a process that's very near and dear to my heart, reclaiming our power, doesn't mean power over awesome, right? So, because I see so many women in the feminist movement saying, "Oh, women rock and all men suck," and that's not the way of the goddess either, right? It's a collaboration and it's working together. So, like, I consider myself a bit of a feminist, but not in, like, never to dismiss men, never, ever. And in my practice, however, as you were mentioning, having men around, I've had men as clients one-on-one, doing Reiki sessions, crystal healing sessions, some coaching sessions. It requires something different from the men that's not as natural for them in terms of really tuning into their intuition, tuning into their emotions. They're not used to that. So for some of them, when they come to see me, it's a huge relief because, you know, that's their natural state. And they are finally finding a sacred space where they can express that aspect of themselves. But then going back into reality and their family system it's like too much of a difference. So they find it difficult to stay in that vibe because it's so difficult. It's so different. And when I've had classes like Reiki level 1, for instance, I've had some men join the circle. What I found is that it's a really weird group dynamic where the man somehow became more important and the women would defer to the man for answers or, well, what was your experience? Instead of reclaiming their own experience as being valid enough. And that was really weird for me to experience as being the teacher and the leader, having kind of that pull of leadership to someone who didn't know anything about Reiki. But somehow other women would validate their experience because they're a man more than the experience of a woman. So that's one of the reasons why, like, because we haven't healed those dynamics within ourselves, I prefer to keep my groups to women only until we're healed enough that we can come together again. Because right now, women are suffering and men are also suffering. So we're living a lot in our shadows, right? In my language, that's called a shadow. And when the shadows come together and they do a shadow dance, it just gets ugly. We have to heal like one aspect at a time before we can really come together into a healed and empowered perspective. Yeah. Makes sense?
That definitely makes sense. And like I said, it all depends on, because like I said, there's some very specific things that I do that don't, that like we definitely, but for the most part, it is that conversation of back and forth and those dynamics of having these discussions and being able to have those two different things. But I can definitely see some of those things happening that you're talking about, right? So
you have to be willing to be open to the conversation, as you're saying, and seeing things in a different perspective. Because if as women, we're stuck in that perspective that all men suck and all men contribute to patriarchy and all men, like, right? Like, that's a big statement, like all men. Like, that's billions of people. And is it really the truth? No, it's not. But if we enter the conversation with that hurt perspective, it just skews everything.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Be willing to enter the conversation in a space of neutrality and curiosity.
Yeah, and that's huge, right? So like in my home, we've had just me as the female in the house, right? So because I raised two boys, and so, but one of the things, and I'm very honored that my one son doesn't have a girlfriend, but the other one does. And his girlfriend comes back all the time and talks about like how he's like kind of in touch with that feminine side. Like, I don't really see that. Like, he's in touch with his emotions. He's in touch with and that give and take. And it's okay for me to be crying. He just supports me. Although he'll tell you that, like, I really hate it when she cries. It really makes me feel uncomfortable because I can't do anything to fix it. But it's that part of being able to learn the roles, right? So he helps cook, he helps clean. Obviously not the way that we actually want to be able to do things, but it's just that give and take. And so like even my husband, like he's the one typically who does the laundry and the dishes. I hate doing laundry and dishes. And so typically that's something that he does, but I will go and help out in the yard, and I will go and do different things. And so like we have a, we work together in terms of being able to have that it's not identity to roles, right? So if I'm physically able to lift something, then I physically lift it. But it's like not like, oh, I'm a girl, I can't do it, please help me, right? So but like, mind you, I have a back injury, so like now it's like, oh God, please help me, but I don't care if you're male or female, I just can't lift it, right? So
but one of the key things that you said is not jump into the situation and try to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that also comes from that perfectionist perspective and the I must be the fixer. And men have that, women also. Like why do we have our hands in so many pots? Trying to fix what our kids are doing, trying to fix what our society or our community, what the government is doing, right? Sometimes what needs to be done and what we learn in the goddess pathway is that you don't have to be in there with the answer, but you're there as a sacred witness.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's uncomfortable, because in that moment, it's not about you, but it's about being the support and being the sacred container. It's about the other person and being there for them.
And those are huge messages, right? So like same as, so we had a circle on Saturday, for example. And so one of the people were actually tearing up and apologizing for crying. And it's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to cry. And we actually had that conversation. So like in my circles, one of the rules that I have is that if somebody starts to cry, we don't go to them. If they need us to go to them, then they will, they'll open up and they will, they'll open up and they'll do the different things that are open for them. And, but if they start to cry, allow them to cry, allow those emotions to be able to come up, allow those different things to be able to happen. And so that is something that's like really, really important for us to be able to remember, is having these conversations and having that ability of being able to feel those emotions and not having to fix it. Because like even with my women's circle, is that even the women, if somebody else is crying, they're wanting to go to them. Right? They're wanting to make them feel better. Well, we don't always have to make them feel better. No. Sometimes that crying is all that they need. And if they do need a hug, then there's no reason why they can't say, I need a hug. Right? So
empowerment, right? Knowing what your needs are and speaking up for what your needs are.
Yep. And so, so Jim says, so I wish you ladies would stop using the term patriarchy. It's outdated and makes it seem like men are bad. And I know the history. Men need to get better at making their wives feel great. Unfortunately, that is the case, right? So I can't change that. So, but I hear what you're saying, because and that's one of the things that Jaz said, right? So like not all men do these things, not all men, right? So there is some different balance, but that is where it came from. And so unfortunately that's where we are healing from. So I don't know if there's anything more that you want to add to that statement, Jaz.
No.
So, but so is there anything, so how do people continue to work with you? Because like we've almost done our full hour. Again, this is awesome. I know, like we can talk for hours, and like, the conversation wasn't even close to how it went on Monday.
Yeah.
So Jaz, is there, like, how do they work with you? Like so I've got some links as to how to reach you, but is there anything specific that you actually have that you would like to be able to share specifically that you want to?
Well, one of the best ways to work with me is to either send me an email or to book a wellness assessment. And those, 30 minutes and we just talk. So it can sound like what we've just had, you and I, but a little bit more specific in terms of, I will be asking a few questions in terms of, how are you handling your stress? What's going on in your life? We look at all the foundations: body, mind, emotions, and soul. And I do have a few classes that are online on my Teachable platform. So that's mysticpriestessschool.teachable.com. Right now, I have a new program that's coming up. It's a 3-month program, and it's all about stressing less. So that is kind of my big invitation if you want to really dive into the stress levels and managing it in a different way. And learning the way of the goddess, which is not your Hollywood, here's a goddess and here's the energy, but more about empowering yourself and recognizing your feelings and changing the mindset, finding the support that you need in the community. That's what it's about. So it's a 3-month program that's going to be quite intensive and life-changing. So that's what I have going on right now. And I invite you to send me an email or a Facebook message about that.
Okay. So do you have a registration link or anything for that program, Jaz?
I do, but mostly it's by email. It's a conversation. I am not a marketer. My perfectionist self says I suck at marketing. I'd rather have a conversation. So, I know that people are stressed and they might not want to have a conversation because they don't know me and they don't want to impose, but you can just take a nice deep breath, and if you want to talk to me, just reach out and then we'll just talk.
Okay. Whereas my perfectionist self says that I need to have a sales page and I need to have a registration link, right? So like I've got like so like
I know, and I'm kind of saying F that because it doesn't work for me. I just want to have a conversation. Is that okay?
Well, and my women's retreat actually sold out before we even actually
right
the registration page open. So it was like I just kept getting messages saying, can you hold me a spot? Can you hold me a spot? Yeah. So I actually had to create a registration link so people could get registered without even having the sales page. So it was like, okay, like this is kind of backwards. Like my brain was
that's one of the really shoulds that we have. It's a really big should that blocked my business for almost a year now because I had that feeling that I was not good enough because I don't have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
But all the bells and whistles is not who I am. It's not who I am. Like I have a shirt, but I have like pajama bottoms right now.
And that works, right? So being able to see from the top up, that's all that we need to see, right? Yep. So like that works. So definitely if you guys want to have a conversation, definitely if you guys want to join in on the conversation through this video, then feel free to make a comment. Jaz will be tagged on this video as well, so she'll be able to come back and answer any questions. If you guys want to be able to have conversations, this will be great. This will be actually added to my YouTube channel, and so like feel free to follow the YouTube channel, and it will also get added to my website as well. So I'm doing the bells and whistles. So it will be added to my website as well. And so the way that my front page sets up is that if the conversation or like the people are interested in the conversations that are actually going on, then that person actually gets featured on my front page. So Maggie was the one who kind of like, I haven't seen that it's been anybody else. But if you guys are interested, definitely like, share, and watch it through the YouTube channel as well. And so then Jaz's conversation will be able to be continued, and on the Monday Whispers chat, it's also included on there as well. So, and it'll be there until the next show. And so, but definitely, I really enjoyed having a second conversation with you, and I'm kind of honored that the first conversation was private just to me. So, and like I said, it doesn't. We did get into some pretty heavy stuff. It's really too bad because that we couldn't share it, because like there was some pretty heavier stuff that was actually going on, and not that this conversation wasn't great either, but it was different, right? It was just two completely different conversations. And that's what I like about Monday Whispers chat, is that there's no set questions. I don't have any set questions other than the intro at the beginning and reading off the intro that they send me. Like that's the only consistent thing that I actually do. And part of that had to do with the fact that my perfectionist brain, when I first started, I had all my list of questions, and somebody would answer a question and take us off into a different place. And then it would be like, oh, okay, now how am I supposed to get back to these questions? How am I supposed to make that fit into the conversation? And so then it was like, yeah, we're not doing that anymore. Like, that's just not happening.
Federal government, and I developed training. So everything that the facilitator would say, because I would develop the binders, it was like to the minute. So by 3:07, you say this, by 3:09, you say that, and everything is scripted like that. So yeah, for me, it was a big unlearning process as well, to just be.
And it
unscripted should probably be the tagline.
and it makes all the difference in the world, right? Yeah. Because, and like I said, so somebody, or else I'd be like, okay, I'll get back on track. And then it's like, I'll ask the question, and then the person who's being interviewed goes, I already answered that question, but like, okay, I'll answer it again, right? Because they had actually taken it in through a different conversation. So like now it's kind of like whatever, right? So this whole part of this is about being able to empower women and to be able to help us get to where we actually have that strength, and being able to be who we are and who we want to be and where we want to go. And so that's the whole purpose. And so I love being able to have these general conversations with people like you. So thank you so much for joining me, and for all of you who have joined us live and are on the replay, like please join in the conversation. Like we really would love to be able to have you to join in. So now I'll try and figure out, because now I'm all baffled. So now I have to actually try and figure out, okay, where's my button again? What am I supposed to be doing?
Send my love to everyone as well. And thank you so much for watching. And I hope to be of service.
So talk soon, everybody. Bye for now.